And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, it is the one-year anniversary of the devastating Palisades and Eaton fires. And at the You Let Us Burn rally, to repeat the breaking news, Spencer Pratt, Palisades resident, former reality star, announced that he is running for mayor against Mother Goose.
No!
And we'll, of course, be following that race very, very, very closely on this program. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a building strategist, developer, entitlement expert, and resident of Pacific Palisades. In fact, she owns multiple homes. Elaine Culotti. Elaine, welcome.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. And you are a Palisades resident. You are at the big rally today. What's the feeling at the rally right now?
It's actually been pretty high energy given what a somber day it is, right? So I think the energy is high. We organized a 5K run with all the kids from Pali High School and the American flags, and there's been some lovely stuff. Spencer wants to be mayor. I guess that's new news. And everybody came out. I mean, Hilton was here. I saw Serpa here. I saw Rick Caruso today. I've seen everybody. All of the politicians they're all circling. The developers and the politicians are circling.
Well, I guess that's understandable knowing what we know about what goes on in Los Angeles. So let's go ahead and start out with your situation. So your home burned down in the fire. You own multiple properties. How are you doing right now? Are you doing okay?
I'm doing okay. I mean, compared to many, had lost a small percentage of my portfolio. But I want to say this to people that don't understand real estate. The value of your home is in your community. And if you don't have community, whether you do or don't have a home, you don't have a value because you can't really sell it or rent it. You know, there's the toxic debris and toxic waste issue. So really, you got about $500 billion worth of real estate between all of these fires, whether it's standing or not standing. That's very hard to evaluate. You can't rent it. So none of these communities have businesses in them, and it's very difficult to rebuild. And then the people that do have a home, they're scared to move back in because of toxic uncertainty. And moreover, do you want to live in a construction zone for 5 years? If they don't let you have permits, it's going to be a forever rebuild, and you're basically making a decision whether you want to live on a construction site for 10 years. I mean, I certainly don't.
No, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And I would imagine that for most of the people who were there, there's a certain amount of trauma that they've been through. When you lose everything that you own down to your toothbrush, and suddenly, even if you do okay, you have a good job, or you have some coin in the bank, or you've done well with your investments, when you lose everything down to your toothbrush, that has to be a wake-up call, and that has to be a traumatic thing.
It's a terrible, terrible experience. It's a very terrible experience. But I will tell you what I saw today. I saw a unified Palisades, and I saw the precipice of a revolution for politics in California. And I'm not supporting anybody yet because I have my own ideas about how we should run the state. But I saw deep blue Democrats listen to people that are conservative and say, we've got ourselves a big mess here. And if we could just get people to vote on policy instead of their color or their likely name recognition, I voted for them last time. We need complete change from the top down. And this is the message I say to anyone who's lost everything. You've lost everything now, okay? Time for new leadership.
Let's go through some of the claims that have been made. And as someone who is living through it, you can tell us whether or not they're telling the truth. Let's start out with fire aid, because there was a big report, CBS 2, about where the fire aid money went. And those who are receiving money from the fire aid say that the money is going to help the victims, that the victims have access to all of those services, and they are helping people right and left, and there's no fraud going on.
That is a big fat lie. Let's play truth or dare. That is a big fat lie. They already found it. Half of it is at Act Blue. That's Gavin's like campaign thing. And so a bunch of it went to Annenberg. They're a foundation that are not helping. Nobody's helping anybody.
And there are people who lost it all who are trying to get help from FireAid. They were expecting money, including some who were featured in the production. And to my eye, none of them have received any help. Are you hearing anything different?
I know firsthand from my own lived experience, me and many of my friends that put money in and time in and energy and received nothing back. Nothing back. Not even a phone call. And when all the stuff started about, oh, it's gone, it's stolen, and we started to inquire and make calls, they don't take your calls. So it's not true. We could play truth or dare all day. It's not true. And they know it's not true.
And they don't even bother to return the phone calls?
No, of the people that supported the event. That's the issue.
My God.
Look, here's the thing, okay? In California, we have created a middle that sucks all the money away. NGOs, which is a non-government agency, okay? It's not a government agency, but the organization operates like a government organization. Number one. Number two, nonprofit. Nonprofit is supposed to be nonprofit, but their costs to be operating always wind up being way more than the donations they take in. So there's no money left for the cause. And then you have special interest. I mean, that just sounds bad from the onset. What's your special interest? All of these people get the money that's earmarked from federal funds, from, people that donate, from government in Sacramento, from whatever. They get the money, and then they're supposed to give it to the cause, the homeless people or the drug place where they're going to get cleaned up, or they're going to give it to the people in the FireAid. And what happens is the people in the middle, they suck the life right out of the bond, right out of the bill, right out of the donation, and there's nothing left, and then the people that need it don't get the money. You can't do that anymore. And it ruins philanthropy. It makes people like me not want to give. And you stop giving in this world, you got nothing left. So you got to get rid of the middlemen. We don't need all these people in the middle. I got news for you. The people that came here to clean up were middlemen. FEMA has a budget. FEMA doesn't take the fire debris away. They have to hire people. And it costs 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. You could 10x it to do something because there's so many people in the middle.
Let's start.
Whatever they want.
Let's go to another claim. Karen Bass said that she is moving heaven and earth to make sure that the permitting process is as easy as pie, and permits are being granted to people who ask for them in timely manners.
Okay. Ollie, I'm come free, okay? No way. Absolute lie. BS. First of all, on the very first day, they should have opened a building department in the Palisades. You know what they did? They got a piece of land on Topanga and PCH where the old Oasis used to be, this cool outdoor store. They put the Department of Water and Power in there, so the electric company and the water company there. And guess what? They couldn't get electric there. And by then they lost the lease, they got kicked out, and now they have no building department. So they're saying they're going to put it on Marquez a year later. We have no building department in the Palisades. You have to go to their one stop on Sawtelle, and developers are smart. So all the developers go to the one stop. So the one stop is like 30 stops. It takes forever. There's no permits. It's a big fat lie.
Okay, here's another claim that the mayor made. The mayor said that there would be an investigation that would determine just exactly how the fire started and who made mistakes, and it would be an honest and open investigation.
Wait, what? I'm going to go because
can't say that.
No
can't say that, Elaine.
In the world, that investigation would not be public, which means that investigation did not happen or it was doctored. You cannot have an investigation out there promised that isn't readable. Where is this mystery investigation? LA Times did an investigation. They found a lot of problems. And they're also in the whole, they're in that whole turning ball. And they still couldn't deny that there was massive fraud, massive mistakes, massive infrastructure issues, massive disaster negligence, nothing working. We had no water. I mean, it's going to be really hard for them to skirt the fact that there was no water. 1,000 structures burned on the 8th. People have to pay attention to this. Listen, 1,000 structures burned on the 8th. There's no water. You can see there's no trucks operating on the 8th. They were out of water. So if you didn't see it at night on the 7th, you certainly could see it on the 8th. The bank building There's a clip. I hope you guys find it. There's a clip of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass at a press conference on Sunset Boulevard in the morning on the 8th, and behind them, the Chase building is burning, 40-foot flames, and there's no fire truck. And they're just talking like, oh, the fire's coming. It's crazy.
Here's another claim. Ricardo Lara and the California Department of Insurance say that they are holding the insurance companies accountable to make sure that they are giving fire victims every cent that they are owed.
Well, okay. First of all, with what money are the bonds going to be covered? Because insurance companies have to be bonded. And if they go bankrupt, California Fair Plan, bankrupt, they have to get those bonds to pay people. And we don't have any bonds left because we leveraged all of those things for other crazy NGO middlemen people to do stuff with. There's no money. The state is broke. So even if they do hold insurance companies' feet to the fire, which is ridiculous because all the insurance companies went to the state and said, hey, give us your mitigation reports. Tell us what's going on with brush clearance. And if you don't by date certain, we got to go because we don't want to be stuck paying for all these houses. Of course, they didn't do any brush clearance. There were no mitigation reports. So insurance companies started to leave California. So they were well aware 2 years before this happened. I am a personal, again, my lived experience. I had to get all new insurance on my properties in 2022 because there were no mitigation reports for cutting brush. Even my agent didn't tell me that because I don't think they knew, but the insurance company sure did. And so they left. Okay, they took off. And then they put all these B, C, D insurance companies back in here. And one of them, California Fair Plan, for example, which is an experience I'm also living, they don't have any way to cover these losses. They're not big enough. They don't have enough staff. They're shoveling like deck chairs around the Titanic. It's over.
So what happens when you file a claim with the California Fair Plan and you're trying to get money so you can rebuild? Have you received any money from the California Fair Plan? Do they try to lowball you on everything? Do they return your phone calls? What's it like?
So they assign someone to you. That's your adjuster. That's the first thing that happens. Then they make an appointment to come out and look at your property. That's the second thing that happens. Then the adjuster calls and says they're going to get you a report. That's the third thing, and it doesn't happen easily. That takes a very long time. Eventually, you get a report. The report usually says nothing's wrong or the least amount is wrong because they're trying to pay the least amount. Then you have to either accept that or you have to fight that. So because it's always so low, most people fight it. So then they give you a new adjuster because the old adjuster does the preliminary stuff. So they want to give you somebody who knows less. Because if they gave you somebody who knows more, that would be helpful. So they give you a new adjuster who knows less. Maybe doesn't speak English, maybe lives in India, doesn't matter, but they don't know what they're talking about. And you have to explain your story all over again. And then you fight that. And then they say, okay, you need to be in a different division because now you're in a fight. So then you get a new adjuster. Now this goes on for a year, I can tell you right now, and no money goes out except for one thing, which is called lost use. And it's a small amount of money. That's supposed to pay your rent while you're out. Okay, well, that's over because everybody's been out for a year.
So what happens? Because if you hire a contractor, they want money up front. If you rent a house, they want money every single month. There's a lot of money, certainly with permits. The city hasn't waived the fees on the permits yet. So I guess if you want a permit, you have to come up with the money for those right now. If you hire an attorney because you need an attorney to work you through the system, maybe with your insurance company, maybe with the city, maybe with whatever, I don't know. All of that money needs to be paid to these people in real time. And if the insurance company's dragging their feet, what are you supposed to do?
Okay, so I think it's really important to understand that there is no way in the world that people are going to be able to build their houses before they have to start paying mortgages and rents or whatever. There's no way. Because the forbearance rule that was passed down, which is a federal thing, it's not a state thing. So if you're in a disaster and you have a mortgage, they can give you forbearance up to a year. That's up this year. It's up in January. It's done. So come February 1, any forbearance that was forced is over. So if you can't negotiate with your bank, your mortgage payment is due on your burnt out lot. And by the way, if you sell that lot, you're going to pay mansion tax on that burnt out lot. Everything is still exactly the same as it was. If you need a power pole or gas or anything, you're going to pay for those permits, even if it's temporary. If you need to rent anything to grade your lot or to put a little wall for your power pole, you have to go get a permit for that. And none of those things are going smoothly. In addition to that, let's say you do get a permit for your house and you want to start building. You're talking about the end of the year maybe that you break ground. And then what? You spend 2 years building a house that you have a mortgage on dirt for an old house, and you have under insurance, because building costs today are like $1,000 a foot, not $300 a foot. And the problem with their plan and cheaper insurance companies is they only give you $200, $300 a square foot. So you're behind. You're behind on time, you're behind on insurance, you're behind with mortgage, and you're behind on even knowing how to build and get permits. It's all going to fall apart in the coming months. Watch the coming months. Anybody that was hanging on for this to change in a year is not going to be able to hang on for another year.
What you just described is a never-ending nightmare, a nightmare where you can't rebuild in any sort of reasonable time frame, a nightmare where even if you sell the property, you're going to get soaked 15 ways from Sunday. It sounds like you're behind the eight ball with whatever move you make.
Well, the most important thing to remember is that whether you want to believe it or not, it's a land grab. It's a land grab. The way that they land grab is they pass a bill a year ago, called SB 79, which is a high density bill. And they tell everybody that's voting for that bill that don't worry, it won't affect you because it only goes near a transit district. So that's a plane, a train, or a bus, okay? Big, huge bus turnarounds and planes and airports and things like that. Well, okay, maybe that's a good idea to have high-density housing at the train station. Who would say no? Not very many people. It passes. What do they do in the Palisades? They haul Wolfgang Puck and Frank Gehry into Coastal Commission on October the 8th by dark of night to approve their big development that's on PCH and Sunset, and they say, hey, we're going to go ahead and give you the permit now, but we're going to make a change. We're going to add a transit district. So now everybody down on PCH and Sunset is subject to apartment buildings. And the developers are swarming. They're like vultures. You can see them just driving around, taking pictures and looking, oh, I could get my hands on that one and that one. It's insane. It's sick is what it is. It's terrible.
Well, I'm sorry that you're living through this. I'm happy that you're with your neighbors today and your voices are being heard. Certainly, we're talking about it on the radio. It's all over television. Hopefully, it'll be in the newspapers tomorrow morning as well. Thank you so much for stopping by today and making sure that your voice is heard.
Thank you so much for having me on. We appreciate you so, so very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Elaine Culotti, building strategist, developer, entitlement expert, and resident of Pacific Palisades. She was one of the homeowners who saw her home burn down in the fire. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, next week, we're going to the San Fernando Valley.
We're going to the Pineapple Hill once again, Friday, January 16th from noon to 3 in Sherman Oaks. It is a beautiful patio, and I looked at the weather. It's going to be great out there on Friday. Great food, great drinks, a live broadcast of the John Phillips Show on a Jimmy Buffett Friday. And we're going to be there with Susan Shelley from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association because the courts have made it easier to raise your taxes. Come by and sign the petition to save Prop 13, which you can do ahead of time. Go to saveprop13.com and print out that petition and send it in. Then you can just come hang out on Friday. We'll tell you more about taxpayer rights and protecting Prop 13, but save the date, Friday, January 16th from noon to 3 at the Pineapple Hill Saloon in Sherman Oaks. We'll be there.
If you want to weigh in on what you just heard on this, the 1-year anniversary of the fire in Pacific Palisades in Altadena, give us a call at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. 800-222-5222 is telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Richie Greenberg joins us at the top of the hour. Let's go to Bill in Los Angeles. Bill, hello.
John, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me on your show. Last year at this time, Today is a beautiful electric Southern California day. You can see the Santa Monica Mountains and all their clarity and beauty. Last year, 1 year ago at this time, I was standing on a bluff in Playa del Rey looking at the Palisades fire just blazing, and it was so sickening. Your last segment was absolutely mesmerizing to the point where I had to pull over, stop, and listen to it. I mean, Elaine just nailed everything, and she spelled everything out and put everything out in front of us that we need to know or should know to get rid of the incompetents that are running this city. It's just unbelievable.
I'll tell you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. In this case, in this fire, which was a disaster of epic proportions, it's a little bit different than other natural disasters that we've seen before. Like, let's take Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. We know that hurricane leveled a huge portion of that city. It wasn't just one neighborhood, it was a lot of the city of New Orleans. So virtually everyone in that city was impacted one way or another by that hurricane. And the fact that the government failed them was something that impacted every man, woman, and child in that city. The problem for Pacific Palisades is that it's a tiny portion of a big city. And unfortunately, the number of people, or I guess fortunately, the number of people who were impacted by these fires is small compared to the population of the city as a whole. And the politicians are hoping that by just letting it move off the front page of the newspaper, that the public at large will forget about it and they won't be aware of all of the failures from what happened in fighting the fires to what's going on right now with issuing permits and all points in between, that people will forget about it and those that are impacted will just move on instead of stay and fight. I think it's very important to get the truth out there. I think it's very important to talk to the people who were directly impacted by all of this because they're so eloquent. She was amazing in her description of what has happened to her and her neighbors in Pacific Palisades. And we just have to make sure that those stories and those voices are out there.
You know, there was a point in time when the people whose voices are being heard now were solidly encamped in the power grab of the people that are in office now. But now you're starting to have people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Gutfeld and with the conservative show, that's on Fox at night. But there's a woman by the name of Kennedy who's a Democrat, and she's a closet lefty. She's on the show, and she had her house burned down in Pacific Palisades. She is roaring against Mayor Bass and against all the incompetence that let it happen to her. The voices that were solidly in the other camps, in the other camp are starting to come out and say their piece now.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Robert in Santa Clara. Robert, hello.
Yes, like you said, preferred developers were swarming because the Agenda 21 preferred developers have been, they haven't given up. Every little parcel they can get, whether it's scorched earth where they sent one of their workers or an old guy on construction, let's light the hill on fire, haha. We're going to redevelop them. That's pretty alleging, but I wouldn't be. They're happy with the results. Josh Green in Hawaii talking to Newsom. Newsom's a shill for high density development. They all are. Let me give you a little story about high density development. I'm an Uber driver, part time. I got stiffed by a cash ride, and because I was taking them to the new Stag and Pack Cube. They're next to Kiefer and St. Lawrence Expressway, next to Apple. Okay, these are the social coursities that we get. And then my friend's a real estate guy, and he put up a little website that said, were you fooled by the language backing Prop 13 that it was for fire victims? And he was immediately flagged as an agitator for community guidelines. These guys have a network of trying to squelch all us regular plebs who want to invest in a home, have an estate. They're just working against us, working against small-time landlords, small-time restaurants. They're raising the CPI with the gas tax, cap and trade. We can't even breathe around here, have anywhere upward mobility, and it's all about having the edge on gaining properties and rebuilding them. That's all. It's really these developers. They're mean. They're ruthless, and they want this insurance company thing. What is the broader portfolio of AGI or what is it, State Farm, Allstate? What are they connected to BlackRock? I mean, it's all like on purpose. And us middle class people, well, tough. Excuse my language.
Oh, can't use that word.
Boy, everyone's cursing today.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. And I'll tell you, one of the themes that you hear over and over and over again is that developers want to take the land and they want to get rid of the single family homes and they want to turn it into high density housing. And that's not something that the developers only want to do. Many of the politicians in Sacramento and in various city councils and boards of supervisors up and down the state, they buy into that too. They want high density housing because they want you to not have grass that you need to water. They don't want you to have a swimming pool. They don't want you to have a car. They certainly don't want your spouse and your kids to have cars. They want you riding public transit. And it's real easy to force you into that kind of lifestyle if instead of having a single family home where you have a yard and a pool and a garage and all those things, where you live in multi-use housing above a Panda Express. And there's nowhere to park your car, so you have to ride their murder trains. And they think that that's a green way to live. They think that you're not polluting the environment if that's how you're going to live. And so let's just go ahead and force everyone to live like that. But the fact of the matter is that for most of us in California, and there are some exceptions, certain parts of Santa Monica, San Francisco, certain neighborhoods in San Francisco, certain neighborhoods in Oakland, people want to live like that. And the cities in certain neighborhoods are built for that. But for most of California, we're not built for that. We're built horizontally, not vertically. We're not Manhattan. We're not Boston. We're not Philadelphia. And we never will be. If you want to live in a city that offers those possibilities, there are cities that are built that offer everything you want and more. You just have to buy a coat because most of them are in cold weather climates. Most people in California, and I've lived here my entire life, the people I grew up around, most of them did not aspire to live that way. Most of them want a single family home, usually a ranch home, and they want a little bit of space. We don't live here because we want to live in a concrete jungle. We like the palm trees. We like the mountains. We like the oceans. We like the views. We like the bridges. We like all of those things that we live around that are pretty. And it's a lot easier to enjoy the environment that you live in if you have a little space. If you live on top of one another, you might as well be in Manhattan, where they have a subway system that is built that can get you anywhere you need to go, where you have huge buildings that have a lot of availability for housing in those sorts of high density environments. I would live there if that's what I wanted, but I don't want to live like that. I want a little space, and I like the beauty that California has to offer, and I want to be able to see it and enjoy it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Coming up after the news at 2, Richie Greenberg joins us. He's the host of the Really San Francisco podcast. But right now, we're taking your calls on the 1-year anniversary of the fires in Southern California. Let's go to Carl in the San Fernando Valley. Carl, hello.
Hi, John. Just want to say first-time caller, long-time listener. As a first responder in a neighboring city with an iconic pier that was working those 2 days, Elaine was one of the most amazing interviews that you've had. Every bullet point that you put out before her, she nailed with stats, figures, and she's right on point. I can tell you that the majority of those homeowners that live in the Palisades yes, there's celebrities and there's people that have lived there within the last 10, 15 years. A lot of those people have lived there 50 plus years with their families. The fact that they've lost everything, and then when they try to recoup their money by selling their vacant plot, and they have to pay the mansion tax, as she described, is just unbelievable. That's all I have to say. I'll listen to your comments off the air. Thank you, John. Great interview.
Well, thank you so much for the call. And you're right. She certainly came with the receipts ready to go. And I'm sure she has those receipts, and she's so familiar with the story because it's a sad story that she has to live through every single day. I can't imagine being one of these victims where every day you wake up and every day you have to deal with the same sad story over and over and over again, where you have to deal with bureaucracies and with insurance companies and with people not returning your phone calls. At a certain point, I wouldn't be able to put up with it. And I'm glad that there are people who are more tenacious than I am at seeing this project cross the finish line. And certainly she seems to be one of those people. Thank you so much for the call. All right, let's go back to the phones and welcome Carl in San Jose. Carl, hello.
Yeah, hi, John. I was listening closely. That was really great information that Elaine gave us, as other people have said. My question was, are they still having to pay property tax? And if it's a total loss, do they get a tax break or something like that? I just didn't hear any of that, and it just seems so compoundingly worse with every word about it.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and unfortunately, I didn't ask her that. I should have. But she did reference the mortgage, and she said that they will have to start paying their mortgages starting in February, so starting next month. And certainly when people have to start paying the mortgage on a home that no longer exists, and they have to pay for living expenses wherever it is that they're living now, many of them won't be able to make that happen. So I would assume that if you're a vulture that's in there and you're trying to find a property at an amazing value, come February, March, April, that's when you'll find them.
Do you think they'll be able to just write it off as a complete loss on their taxes or income taxes?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume that the government, given the fact that the government is the one responsible for this mess, would bend over backwards to keep these people happy, but they're not doing that. They are not giving them the permits in the expedited fashion that they promised that they would. They are not waiving the fees for the permits as they suggested that they would. They can do that. They can take a vote and they can waive those fees. They choose not to. So just because you assume the government is going to try to do them favors doesn't mean that they're going to follow through with it. And so far, they're not doing that.
That's just awful. It's so awful. I appreciate your show, John. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Don in Rancho Palos Verdes. Don, hello.
This is Don. Two things. First of all, they have Fireboat number 3 in LA Harbor. Fireboat number 3 in LA Harbor stayed tied up his dock safely, and they can squirt water 700 feet at a 45-degree angle. They could have covered all the houses along Malibu. They put out 32,000 gallons per minute. 32,000 gallons per minute. They could deluge every home with salt water. Might kill the shrubbery. It's so wet. And they say their charter says they can't leave the LA Harbor. They got 5 other fireboats that can cover LA Harbor. So that's my first pet peeve. The second thing is they're going down the 60 freeway just north of Riverside. They have maybe 1,000 to 1,200 big homes there, mobile trailers. And they could bring those in on those lots down, hook up the utilities, and they could live on their property. And they don't choose to do that.
Well,
Are you there?
To your first point, yeah, I don't know why they didn't use the boats. I don't know if the boats were reserved for something else or what. Here's what I do know. The mayor who was supposed to be calling the shots was in Ghana. The mayor was not here. So you had a city that was being run by committee. And sometimes what happens when you're run by committee is people become afraid to make decisions. If you're the person at the top of the pyramid, you call the shots. And it's easy to have a shot caller when the person who's in the corner office is in town. When the person who's the shot caller is not here, and you're dealing with a fire chief, and you have a police chief, and you have county fire, and you have county sheriff, and you have all of these different departments within the city of Los Angeles, plus you have the council, and you have 15 different members of the council with 15 different opinions, you have a lot of cooks. And because you had a lot of people who all had opinions and everyone was afraid to make the wrong decision and the person who was in charge wasn't here, my guess is that there was paralysis by analysis when it came to what can you do to fight the fire that maybe is an unconventional sort of thing or something that wouldn't normally occur to you under normal circumstances. I think the mayor being in Ghana seriously impacted their ability to fight that fire.
But this is something they should set up for the future. They have a fireboat that's in LA Harbor for like 60 years called Walter Scott. That boat isn't quite as big as fireboat number 3, but they should take and get that thing up to Oxnard or someplace like that where they can have it stand by, because there's been about 3 or 4 fires in my lifetime off the Malibu area. And actually, they're going to come from Long Beach all the way up to maybe Santa Barbara. They need to have pilots that would take and tell the fireboats where it's safe to go and stuff like that. But that's not a big deal. But when I talked to the fireboat captain number 3, he says, our charge says we will not leave Los Angeles Harbor. And I said, we're going to see about that. So I hope this call gets through and the powers that be in the various areas that they can cover will take and say, hey, let's get fireboat number 3 down here or up here to cover our houses. Well, some of those houses are worth $400 or $500 million. And they burnt down to the ground. It was discouraging to see that. While fireboat number 3 was tied safely at the dock.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Dan in Sonoma. Dan, hello.
Hello. I hate to throw more, I don't know, depression or whatever you want to call it on these poor fire victims, but one thing they better check before they rebuild is make sure that they're not going to get reassessed because they're under Prop 13. They've been there any length of time. You know, you got to make sure. They didn't do that up here in Sonoma, but quite possible they could do it in L.A. They need the money. They're always willing to tax you. So just one more thing they got to think about or find out before you start building.
Well, that is a very good point. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. And Randy, to the point that the previous caller made about why not just put temporary homes in the Palisades and let them live there, well, there's a couple of problems with that. First of all, the water was contaminated. There's not electricity and gas in many portions, many neighborhoods in the Pacific Palisades. And would you want to live in an area where all the businesses and schools and churches and your neighbors, everything was burnt to a crisp, and you're there living in a trailer?
It'd be pretty damn depressing.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to do that. All right, we've got one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show. Richie Greenberg from San Francisco is going to join us next. Don't you go anywhere.